there's a distinction between being used for someone's journey and being used by someone. So the part that when we hear being used, that negative connotation we have is usually when you're being used by someone. And that is something that I don't want us to get lost in. Yes, we are here for ourselves. We are here for our journey. We are here for our purpose that God put on our life. And sometimes being in that thought process of what's next, what am I supposed to be doing? What does God have for me? It's stressful. So it was such a pleasant surprise that you're just not here to figure things out for you, but you are also here tied to other people's journey.
Ask Kadi, the voice of reason. It's an advice show covering all kinds of topics that millennials face. That's my girl, Kadi C, the friend that cares more about your growth than your feelings.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Ask Kadi, the voice of reason. I am your host, Kadi C. Before I even get into how my week was and this topic that we're going to talk about, I need you guys to subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're watching me on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, make sure you download and rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts. I'm going to remind you at the beginning. Usually I remind you at the end, but I'm going to start at the beginning because we need to start on the right foot. And I definitely am still trying to get my podcast out there to more listeners so we can all grow together and hear the truth together. Now, it's September. My favorite time of the year is starting. I don't know what it is about the fall. I think it's like, you know, that first day of school feeling. I always talk about that first day. I loved school growing up. I'm not going to say I liked classes or homework, but I love school. And every time when this fall season starts, even though I'm not in school, I still feel that exciting anxiety and also just the urge to get my life together. So like for every season, I get like a new journal. And now I just feel like it's a reset. But mainly because last year was the first year that I feel like I truly combated seasonal depression. Like, you know, that time of the year, especially around daylight savings, when it's getting dark early, I used to, like, you know, you feel it. Like I get excited in September, and then once October, November hit, you start getting sad and start getting that itch for the summer. But last year, I really feel like I cracked the code. And I think I talked about it in a previous episode, but I'm gonna give y'all a little reminder here just because we're in the brink of that season. And anybody who has that fear, like usually the fall is not an exciting time for people because they know that seasonal depression is about to kick in. And for me, it's really something so simple that we overlook all the time, which is like really looking at nature. So like in the summer, that's when everything blooms. That's when the flowers come out. That's when the sun comes out. And that's why we are outside. That's why we get that urge to just be out and about. But when it starts to get cold, what happens to the leaves? Like what happens to these flowers? Everyone is going in. What happens like with bears? Everyone is hibernating and stuff like that. And what helped me last season was intentionally mimicking that. Like one, with my mind, not feeling like this is the time for me. I know like Q4, September is crunch time. Like all the goals that I created in January, I gotta make sure I hit it. Like there's this rush. And I think that combats what we're really supposed to be doing that season, which is really going within ourselves. Being okay with going within ourselves, being okay with taking a beat. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not crunch time. It's time to rest. Whatever you were able to complete from January to August, be proud of that. Be proud and also reflect on that for the parts that you feel like you didn't really meet the expectations or you kind of fell off track. Reflect, give yourself grace while you reflect on the parts that you missed or the parts that you didn't do everything that you could have done. But most importantly, use this as a season to give yourself grace. Use this as a season to give yourself rest and to love up and appreciate the things that you do have. Loving up on your family, loving up on the fact that you got a roof over your head, especially because I think it's gonna be a really bad winter. Like we ain't get snow like how we used to get, but yeah, 3 years. I don't even really recall a snow day last year, but I really feel like because it was so hot this summer, I just feel like it's going to be so cold this winter. So appreciating that you got a roof over your head, appreciating the fact that you have support and income, all the things that you have, I feel like Q4 is the time to appreciate that. So that's my advice to you guys, even though that is not what we're going to talk about today. I want to share something. 2 things happened to me this past week that the fact that it happened twice showed me it wasn't a coincidence. And I'm like, I want to talk about it today. The first was, so the other day, I was sleeping. I woke up around like 6 a.m. And I have been trying to make it a thing to not get up and go straight to my phone because I'm not gonna hold y'all. That's my thing. Like I wake up and get right on social media. And we all know, like the gurus, the self-help gurus always talk about it. And I've even noticed with myself, you don't feel good when you start your day off with just social media or even talking to people. Like that silence in the morning to just reflect and recoup from whatever, how many hours you were supposed to sleep, and then reflecting on whatever your days ahead, that quiet time is so important. So like me, like noticing how my anxiety has gotten so bad, things like not waking up and just going straight to my phone has been things that I've been doing to like curb my anxiety. Because I'll read someone's story, and even though I see something on Instagram, even though it don't have anything directly, it doesn't have anything to do with my direct life, I'll realize it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like, why am I so anxious? And it's like, oh, because I saw that RIP post this morning, or because somebody was just arguing with their baby daddy, or even just because something happy happened to, like, it's just too much emotions to be processing off the wake up. But anyway, I failed at it that day. And I'm so happy that I did. So I got up and I got on my phone. And the first thing I saw was one of my friends post a link to her brand. So she has a fashion brand, which I'm going to get into. This is the bag that I purchased from her. And she just posted the link. And I was like, for the longest, I would see her post it. And I'm like, I'm going to support her. And then I forget. I either forget anything when it comes to spending money. I am very slow at, like, I try not to be impulsive with my spending. And it wasn't, that wasn't the thought. But you know, you're on Instagram. Sometimes I'm on Instagram while I'm driving, no telecops. And I'll just see her post and I'm like, I'm going to support it. But this morning I saw it again. And I remember the thought in my head was like, oh my God, if she didn't post this on her story, I would not have thought that to buy it. But I was adamant. I was like, I'm going to buy it. And I was like, oh, let me see if it has like an Apple Pay option. Cause I have this thing where I don't like to look at my bank account. That's another thing that gives me anxiety. So if it requires me to pull out my card and do all of this, I'll procrastinate with it because the act of spending money just gives me anxiety. But when I went on her link, I saw that it was like a PayPal option. And so I could just go into my PayPal and pay it that way. And it was so not that it wasn't normal for me to support her. I've supported her before, but the act of the urge that I had to just like off the wake up crust in my eyes, trying to figure out my PayPal password, trying to figure out her link to do it, there was just this natural urge to do it. And I did it. And I went about my day. I didn't think to DM her and be like, hey, just supported your bag. It was like, okay, I scratched that itch. Let me go about my day. And later on that afternoon, I got a DM from her. I opened up the DM and she was like, first of all, I want to thank you for your support. And I want to let you know that I've been crying all morning because I got laid off from my job, my 9 to 5, on 7/15, and your order came in at 7:15 this morning. Chills immediately went through my body because as much as it was a moment for her and she was just like, it had to been you, like, because I just know all that you represent, and just like it just gave me a message. Like that was my message. I felt like it was God. And I'm over here like, yo, it was really an urge. Like, even though I will always support you, the fact that I got up and had this urge to click on this link and buy that bag was so out of my norm. And the fact that I had this urge pushing me to do it, it was just such a reminder, a pleasant reminder that like, yes, we are here for ourselves. We are here for our journey. We are here for our purpose that God put on our life. And sometimes being in that thought process of what's next, what am I supposed to be doing? What does God have for me? It's stressful. So it was such a pleasant surprise that you're just not here to figure things out for you, but you are also here tied to other people's journey. And not just the obvious people, like the people in your family or the person you're in a relationship with or your kids, but sometimes a random stranger. Not that this person's a random stranger for me, but like, yo, we are here. We are all connected. And we are all here, not just to be a part of our own journey, but to be a part of others. So it was that one thing. And then yesterday, I went to go pick up my daughter from school like normal. It was Friday, so it was like we was going to drive up to Jersey. I live in PA. And something was like, let me stop in this market. I've been told myself throughout the week that I will make Fridays the day where me and my daughter would spend quality time, but also I work from home, so I spend a lot of time in the house, and I'm starting to realize how much I'm missing out. Even though I'm team work from home, I love the fact that I get so much of my time back and not giving it to the man. But I am noticing how my creativity and just like my connections with God has been so limited because I'm missing out on those random opportunities when you just be on the train and you just come across somebody and talk to them, or you just like in the workplace, things that really don't got anything to do with work, but those magical moments of connection. I'm starting to realize that. So I was like, I want to use the opportunity of connecting with my daughter and also going to different restaurants and just checking out my city. You never know who I'm going to meet. You never know what I'm going to see that's going to inspire me. But like we stopped in the market and I asked my daughter, are you hungry? And usually she'll say, yeah. She was like, no. And I wasn't hungry either. But I'm like, let me just walk around this market. So we walked around, like, cause in the market, there's like little different stores and stuff like that. And I ended up stopping to get a smoothie that I really didn't want. But I'm like, I don't want to say I wasted a lot of time, but I really felt like I was in there doing nothing. 30 minutes passed by, we got this movie, I walk out, and as I'm walking, I hear somebody, Kadi? And I'm like, it was this girl that I used to dance with that I grew up with younger. And she was like, oh my God, I needed to see you, girl. I was just sitting on this corner crying. Mind you, this is not someone, and I don't know, being in the social media era, everybody's been in their own cocoon. Everybody's been dealing with their own problems. And then this season or society that we're in now, which I don't remember it being like this when we were younger, people are becoming more and more private. Not just private in the sense of not blasting yourself on social media, but even amongst your peers, even amongst the people, like shame has been really taken over where people are just dealing with their own issues in their own bubble and not realizing that everybody's dealing, some of us are dealing with the same thing and you're not alone. So the fact that she even opened up, like, girl, I was just sitting on this corner crying. And we ended up talking there for a whole hour. She like was telling me everything that she was going through, abusive relationship. She actually said she wanted to come on a podcast and talk about it, but I won't go too deep into it. But like that moment in the midst of us talking, she's crying, I'm emotional, we're hugging like 10 to 15 times. Like, and I see her all the time on social media, but that moment, and I was like, I told her it's so crazy that like, I wasn't even supposed to see you. She was like, I live right around the corner. She was like, I work at the Family Dollar. And I'm like, I go to the Family Dollar. I never see you or whatever. So she just kept saying, it was meant for me to meet you today. It was meant for me to see you today or whatever. And I was just reminding her about like how we met and what she exuded when I met her. Cause she was telling me how like insecure she is now, how she don't know how. And I'm like, what? I met you as such a go-getter. Like I remember you auditioning in front of, she was 12 at the time. And it was like 15 of us in a group. And she just was walking by while we were practicing on the ground. And she was like, I want to join this group. Can I audition in front of y'all? And I was like, I'm in the group and I would have never done that. Like it was no way. So I was just reminding her like that type of confidence that she had that got her there. So that was just another reminder of just like, oh my God, how we are so connected and how just as much as we have to be intentional about our personal journey and meeting our goals and reflecting on what God wants for us, also being intentional and aware of how much we are a part of other people's journey. So what I wanted to get into today, it made me think of being used. Like, cause the gratitude that I had from those two specific moments was like, oh my God, thank you for using me. Like it's almost like, oh my God, I paid my rent. Like I feel like a lot of the times the imposter syndrome that we feel, the survival's guilt that we feel, even the desires that we want, the reason why we don't fully allow ourselves to want it is like, what do I deserve? Like, you know, who am I to deserve this? It might not be a conscious thought, but subconsciously. So I feel like it's almost like if somebody or a friend like pays for something for you, if you're a decent person, you're just like, oh my God, I just want to pay this person back. I can't wait for their birthday or someone who does something to make you feel good. I don't know if y'all ever experienced this where you're somewhere and someone pays for your lunch. And it's an instant like gratitude, but at the same time, I want to pay them back. And if it's not someone that you can pay back, you want to pay it forward. So that moment was like, it's so many moments where God has saved me. There's so many moments where it's like, I've been blessed and I don't know why. And that moment for me to just like be used for these people's journey, whether it was like for me to instill the confidence that my friend needed at the time or me purchasing that bag, it was like, oh, thank you, God. That's my opportunity, like to pay it back. Like, oh, I'm paying my dues. Like I'm paying rent to be here. Like, you know what I'm saying? To be the person that to get blessed and stuff like that. I'm paying my dues in that. And I feel like we are taught to be selfless in obvious situations. But I think it's so many moments where it's not going to be obvious that we might pass up on it. And those are the moments that truly, like, not just matter over that, but it's like, of course, if you're a dad, you gotta be selfless. If you are in a relationship, you have to be selfless. If you have friends, you have family, the goal to maintain your role in those places and be considered a decent dad, a decent friend, a decent lover is selflessness. But I feel like in moments where we might not think it counts, it's so easy to bypass those moments. Like even with me buying a bag, for me to wake up and bought that bag today, it required me to not overthink of, oh, don't I gotta pay my light bill today? Oh, don't I gotta, like, I do that with myself even when I go shopping and I'm like, ooh, I wanna get this bag, but ooh, what about this I gotta pay for? Or what if this happens? Or what if, I'm always overthinking like, how things are gonna affect me. So when I bought this bag, it required me not to think too much into myself. Like if I would have sat there and thought about, hold up, first of all, when I bought this bag at the time, I had to pay for something that was $50. And I just didn't even think about that. Like, you know what I'm saying? I didn't think about that. Me not thinking about that is what allowed me to take that leap. And granted, had she not reached out to me and told me how that impacted her specifically, I would not have known. And I'm glad she told me, but it made me think of so many moments that I would get to do that and people aren't going to tell me. But at least still being reminded that I had to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like that level of selflessness, knowing that you're being used every moment in your breathing life, even if you're not getting the credit for it. With our family, with our friends, with our kids, we're always getting recognition for it. So yes, it counts in a different way though. As you're breathing, so many things that you're doing, you're not gonna get the recognition. So just keep it in the back of my mind that I need to be used. So here are the signs, because there's a distinction between being used for someone's journey and being used by someone. So the part that when we hear being used, that negative connotation we have is usually when you're being used by someone. And that is something that I don't want us to get lost in. So here are some of the signs. 1, it does not hurt you or hinder you. When you are being used for someone's journey, and this speaks specifically to like our interpersonal relationships we have with people, because once again, to be considered a good girlfriend, boyfriend, to be considered a good mom, dad, or a good friend, you are taught not to be selfish. But sometimes that ideology could hurt us because we will be suffering just to make sure we meet that expectation. And a lot of times we suffer, but the idea of, oh, because I'm helping them, or they need me, or I'm supporting them, that's when we get lost in, oh, honey, you're being used and you're not being used for this person. So it's never gonna hurt you. And one thing about suffering, it's subjective. What I would consider suffering might not be what you or Craig consider suffering. Like, so it's like knowing when you don't really see, like being able to sit in yourself and see, okay, this is hindering me. Sometimes it do require you taking a beat to realize that, because once again, sometimes that suffering is so familiar to your childhood, it's so familiar to past trauma that you have, that you're so comfortable in it. You know what I'm saying? But then you see your world falling apart outside of it. So that's when you know the difference. Like, those examples that I gave you were just 2 random situations, but this specific point really applies to the close relationships that we have with people. And understanding sometimes love is seeing when you're not a part of someone's assignment and removing yourself. Not from the relationship, but from the assignment. Removing yourself don't always mean you got to cut somebody completely off or they're just horrible in your life. Just removing yourself from the assignment, the journey that they're on, and not attaching yourself to that. So that's really important, because one of like my favorite things to do is look at documentaries of people come up stories. I don't know if anybody else have that. Like, I don't even care if it's somebody that is not like I'm a fan of. I just love hearing people's story. And like, one thing I've always found, like one similarity I find in looking at people's journey is always, yeah, I worked hard and yeah, I like sacrificed, but then one day this person, Or one day, like this opportunity, like the most recent one I watched was the story of Trina. And I'm a huge fan of Trina. She is Sagittarius. She's a rapper if you don't know who she is. But her pop song, You Don't Know Nan, with Trick Daddy. When she told the story, and that was the story that made her a breakout star, she said, I just walked into the studio to meet up with my friends. I wasn't even thinking about being a rapper. And Trick was like, yo, go in the studio real quick and I need you to just talk some stuff on here. Like, had he not said that, the trajectory of her life would have been completely different. So in that story, Trick was a part of her assignment. Mind you, for him, he's just like, I'm trying to get this record and I just need a girl real quick. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it didn't hinder him to help her. It wasn't an obsession. It wasn't an ego thing. Like, yeah, I see the success in her, so I'm gonna, like, you know what I'm saying? It was just like our paths happened to cross and he might not have been aware of it in the moment, but he was a part of her assignment. So just knowing that when you are put in assignment in someone's life, it's never going to hurt you. It's never going to hinder you. And it's never really about you, but it's the dues we pay of being human on this earth and being children of God. The second thing is you see/feel the results instantly. When God gives you an assignment on someone else's life, it's never going to be long and torturous. Something about us with wanting to flex the suffering and how long the suffering has been with someone. It's so weird. And it's we all do it.
Good trauma bond.
A good trauma bond. We love us some trauma bonds. Like we love this want to flex the wounds that we've gained in being somewhere for too long or being a part of someone's assignment too long. So when I say you see and feel the results, not that you know what the results are supposed to be, but just like the moment I had with my friend, when I ran into her and she was like, I was meant to see you today. And I was like, I feel that way too. Like you feel like I'm being used in a good way. Like we know how it feels when you're being used in a bad way, but like something about me being a part of this journey feels like I see the results. I don't even know what the results is, but I feel it. Like, so that's one thing to call out. It's never going to be long and torturous. I need us to get that out of our head. And that obsession we have to put in war wounds and like show that I helped this person, look how much I suffer. It's ego. It's ego. Because there is there's a gratification in helping someone in a way where you're not helping yourself in that way. And that's a whole nother story. But that's the ego that makes us want to suffer or, feel like stay in situations longer than we need to and help people in ways that's hurting us, if that makes sense. So that's that one. The third is it does not cause you to stray off your path. That beat that we be trying to take to jump in on somebody else's life is insane. When you are being used for someone's journey, I'm telling you, it's going to be while you are already on the path of your own journey. It's not, I'm taking a pause and then going here. That's another thing that we get confused because being used does not mean you have to stop and convince somebody. That's how we get lost in their path because it's not just, oh, I want to help someone. I also see they're not trying to help themselves. So I'm staying here longer to convince them. That's what really takes up the time. The reason why what I said before is never going to be long and torturous is because that person is already, they know the results. They're already on the path. You just had, like, if we want to compare it to building a house, right? You never are coming with someone's foundation. You might just have one brick they need to finish a layer of the house. But you can only be the foundation of your own world, of your own home. So when we stray, I think the reason why we stray is you got to stop and convince them. You got to stop and give all of your resources. You're trying to build the foundation in somebody else's land. And you can't do that. So that's one thing that I really feel like we have to pay attention to. When you catch yourself really lost in their world and completely negated what you had going on your own path. Last but certainly not least, the person is a willing participant. So that's kind of piggybacking off of what I just said. When you are when you're meant to like really be useful in someone else's journey, they are going to notice it before you notice it. Like I said, when I bought this girl bag, I went about my day. I wasn't thinking from, oh, I need to support her because she needs to get motivated. I didn't even know she got laid off of her job. She came and told me. So it's like you might not always know how you were of use to people, but in areas when you feel like you are telling yourself, oh, I'm here because they need me in this, I'm here because you already are being used for the wrong reasons and you are allowing yourself, and not even that the person is using you, sometimes you are allowing yourself to be used. So they're always going to be a willing participant. They're always going to be able to use you in a way that they need you, and not you trying to convince them on what they need. Okay. Because there's some few quotes I wrote here that I was like, oh, I need to say this. Oh, when I was thinking about that point, it made me think of potential. This obsession we have of, I see the potential in people. And what potential really is you see in that person what you would do if you were in their shoes. Potential has nothing to do with the other person. And our obsession to want to convince people of their potential is really a mirror of what it is that we would do if we were in their shoes. So I want us to erase, because I think when I said willing participate, when you see potential in someone, you feel like, oh, I got to convince them that you can go hard in this. I got to convince them that you got to love me this way. I got to convince them that you need to be on this level path on your journey. No, you won't ever have to convince anybody who's aware and who's a willing participant in their own journey. You know what I'm saying? So those are the 4 points. I know there's so much more that you could think of, but these are 4 things that I just want you guys to think of when it comes to being used, and be more open and intentional. I don't even want to say open, be intentional, but as you are on your walk in life, be aware that you are also a part of other people's journey, and allowing yourself to be used in that way. So let's get to my favorite part of this segment, which is Ask Kadi. I wonder if I want to go with your thing now.
Before you even wrap, I
Yeah,
want you to remind the audience of how we started.
Oh, okay.
22.
Okay, this is Greg. Y'all know Greg. I feel like I brought him up, but I told the story about how I ended up here in the Five Peaks Media Studio with Craig. He's behind the camera. I posted, oh yes, this story aligns so much. Okay, so I remember being at home and I was like, every time, and my podcast is something I know I've been working on for years, but it's also something that I have remained inconsistent in the past. And I've always just struggled with the courage to keep going, right? So one day I just woke up and I'm like, a year has passed. I'm going to start recording again. And I was like, you know what? What will force me to stay consistent this time? I'm going to just post a video. So I recorded a video in my house, in my room. And I was like, I'm going to just do it. Like, I'm just going to do it. And I did it. And after that, I was like, okay, I didn't stay consistent. But then I went to Texas around the same time and I was like, I'm going to move to Texas, blah, blah, blah. I told this story before. But lo and behold, while I was in my journey of God, what do you want me to do? I was like, in my head, maybe I need to move to a city that have more creatives where I could connect more, on 2/22/2002. And that's what gave me the chills with my girl Yanni in her bag when she said, oh, 7:15, your order came in 7:15 when I got laid off. 222 is something I've been seeing all year that year. Should I read the conversation? Mm-hmm. This is what he wrote me on Facebook. The backstory with me and Greg is we went to school together, but we barely got to get to know each other while we were at school. But it was an all-white school, so all the black people know each other. And you know Facebook, you see somebody that you see on campus, you just follow them. So I think that's how we probably ended up friends on Facebook, just because we knew we were familiar faces from FDU, but we never interacted. He wrote, I love to help you with your podcast and Ask Kadi. I believe in you so much, and I think that you and I can help each other break through. I love what you got going on, but you need a studio, and my mentor has one in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. Let's talk, please. I remember exactly where I was when I got this message. I was in Houston. And when I got to Houston, I was like, all right, God, I just kept praying, God, if this is where I'm supposed to be, let me know. And the sign that I was looking for was the moment in Houston. Like, I thought it was going to be someone in Houston to give me that confirmation that this is where I need to move to take the next step. But no, I'm in the bathroom. I got this text and my cousin was with me. And I'm like, girl, look at this. Like, oh my God. Like, I never even talked to this boy. Crazy thing is, the way my social media is set up, I was always focused on Instagram, but I have my Instagram set up where stuff would just get on Facebook. So I never even knew that you knew my content, was watching any of that. And I wrote, wow, I literally was just telling myself, I need a team or some sort of help. That was the biggest thing. Like every time, God is so funny, because every time I would give him an excuse subconsciously in my mind, like, oh, I want to start my podcast, but it's so hard without a team. And that would be the thought that would keep me inconsistent or will make me fall back and not do it. So I said to him, thank you so much. We should definitely chat. I'm in Houston right now, but I'll be back home on Thursday. Let me know when you're free. And look where we are now. This was 2022, it's 2 years later. And Craig, the help he has been, like, I get chills every time. But this really speaks to what I'm talking to today. You never know when you are being used for someone's journey. And like that message you sent me, not only the resources that it has given me with me connecting with Craig and recording at the studio, the inspiration and the confirmation it gave me that, okay, God was like, this is what you need to be doing, came through you. Every time you have a prayer and every time someone else have a prayer, the answered prayer is always going to come in the form of a person. So yes, paying attention to how your prayers are being answered, but also paying attention when you're a part of someone else's prayer, you know? And oh my God, I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is like a full circle moment right now. And I feel like with this situation, I was on the opposite side of the end. And the reason why these two situations hit so much, because I never stopped to really be intentional about me being on your end, what you were for me that day. So thank you. Now I just want to get into the question that you had. I had a question here, but we probably touched on another episode because we were talking about something really dope here.
How do I find myself amongst all the ambitions and goals that I have?
How do I find myself amongst all the ambition and goals that I have, right?
Working on so many projects.
We were talking about this earlier. That's the perfect way to phrase the question, about having so many things happening at once in your life and trying to figure out where to start, right? Where to start, what to tackle first, what to tackle last, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's something I've struggled with. That's something that I always see come up in my life and have to take a beat and be like, hold on, focus on what you can tackle today. I think what happens with ambition and some of our goals, there's goals and there's dreams. I feel like dreams are really things that we don't have everything in our control right now. Like people I have a dream I want to get married one day. I have a dream that I want to have a family one day. I have a dream that I want to be a CEO one day. But so many steps within that dream requires other things that's not within your control. That's what I consider a dream. A goal is when everything is in your control. I have a goal, I want to lose 10 pounds. It don't require a magical person to come in tomorrow to allow you to use 10 pounds. Everything that you need to do to reach that goal, you have within your means. So always start with the things that you have all the ingredients to, and take a beat, because timing and seasons are so important on when we're supposed to accomplish certain things. Who's to say, with that example you gave, with us talking about this, had you reached out to me, you had to reach out to me in that day. That season that I was in was the season of, I was a willing participant in my journey. I was willingly looking to really follow my path on this podcast. There's been so many parts. If had you have reached out right after I had my daughter, that's not the season I was in. So I would have probably been like, oh, thank you very much. Let's talk about it later. But right now I got a lot going on. That's not the season I'm in right now. I'm not in the season to figure out my podcast. I'm in the season of figuring out motherhood. So that moment would not have happened. So really understanding that although when we are ambitious and we have so much things that we want to accomplish, it comes with the season. And being okay with that might not be the season. And you know it's not the season because when you sit down and try to list out the steps to get to where it is, you don't have all the ingredients. That means it's not the season. Just like certain fruits, it's a season for it. I want strawberries. Well, granted, they are doing some real devilish stuff with all the things that they're concocting. But if you go to other islands and certain fruits you don't get until the season. It's the season for that fruit. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a dream until it's strawberry season. It's a dream until it's mango season. So the same thing applies to your goals and your dreams. When you have all the ingredients to it, you can tackle it now. Everything that you don't have the ingredients to, put it on the back burner. That's my advice to you and to anyone dealing with this. And that's something that I always have to revisit, because it's easy when you are naturally an ambitious person, you get overwhelmed. Like, oh my God, I want all of this at once. Hold up. What's my ingredients right now? What can I tackle completely solely on my own? Not saying on my own, like you got to do it by yourself, but on my own, meaning I have the resources to even delegate the help that comes my way. That's key. So thank you guys for joining me again. Please, 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 if you have any questions or any advice, things that you need advice on, you go to www.askkadi.com and you can submit your questions or scenarios anonymously. And once again, don't forget to subscribe if you're looking at this on YouTube, and to comment, not just on the YouTube, but even on Apple Podcasts if you're listening just audibly. Bye.
That's my girl, Kadi C, the friend that cares more about your growth than your feelings.